The Cannibal, a huge and monstrous black wild dragon who ate many Targaryen dragons, rumored to have been alive before the Targaryens even came to Westeros and rumored to be even older than Valyrian, is going to appear in Season 3. The Cannibal's background is unknown, with some thinking that he is House Targaryen's dragon gone rogue, while others theorize about him being the last Westerosi dragon or some other Valyrian family's dragon. House of the Dragon sees House Targaryen at its best, with as many as 17 dragons alive. It's the most terrifying dragon, the Cannibal, confirmed by a showrunner to appear when he said in an interview that all 3 wild dragons were designed and will be making appearances in the show. To make things even more exciting, the showrunner said that the designs for the wild dragons are his favorite. As Daemon Targaryen mentioned in Season 1 finale, Cannibal is one of the 3 wild dragons living at Dragonstone, all 3 of which they will try to tame and put on Rhaenyra's side. The Cannibal is the largest and oldest of the 3 wild dragons. The Cannibal is black as coal, with menacing green eyes. The Cannibal is named by the small folk of Dragonstone. The Cannibal earned his name for his hostility towards House Targaryen's dragons, whom he is known to attack and devour. He feeds on carcasses of dead dragons and descends upon the hatcheries of Dragonstone to gorge himself on newborn dragons and dragon eggs. In fact, he is the only dragon known to regard his own species as a source of food. The Cannibal mostly refrains from killing people, unless they disturb him. The Cannibal's exact age is not known. The wild dragon Sheepstealer is said to have hatched when the old king was still young, which would be in the early years of Jaehaerys I Targaryen, Aegon the Conqueror's grandson, and Cannibal is said to have been the oldest and largest of the wild dragons, being therefore even older than Sheepstealer. The small folk of Dragonstone claim that the Cannibal was on Dragonstone before the Targaryens fled the doom of Valyria and arrived to Westeros, over 100 years before Aegon's conquest, a possibility that would make him, despite his size not being considered bigger than that of Vagar and Vermithor, the oldest living dragon in Westeros, even older than Vagar and mighty Valyrian. If the Cannibal was from a different lineage of dragons altogether, if he did not come from the Targaryens, that might also have explained why it was so antagonistic to the other Targaryen dragons, constantly attacking them and eating them. It would also explain why he is not as big as Valyrian or Vagar despite being possibly older than them, which is because he comes from a complete different lineage of dragons, perhaps from a different Valyrian family. Grand Maester Munkin and Septon Eustace doubt these claims, but they've been wrong before. The Cannibal was known to attack smaller dragons. He laired at the back of the Dragonmont, on its eastern side. Prior to the Dance of the Dragons, would-be dragon tamers had made attempts to ride him a dozen times, and his lair was littered with their bones. In the book when Prince Jacaerys Velaryon calls for dragonriders in 129 AC, during the Targaryen civil war to gain more dragons and dragonriders for their cause, none of the dragonseeds who attempt to tame the wild dragons are foolish enough to disturb the Cannibal due to his reputation, and any who are, will not return to tell the tale. In the book, a man living on Dragonstone, Silver Dennis, claiming to be descended from King Maegor the Cruel, is one of Cannibal's victims. While none denied that Silver Dennis had Valyrian blood due to his silver hair and purple eyes, his claim of being a descendant of Maegor is called into doubt as the king was infamously unable to produce a living heir, despite marrying multiple fertile women. Instead, he tried to master Sheepstealer, but the dragon tore off his arm. As his sons struggle to stanch his wound, the Cannibal descends on them, drives off Sheepstealer, and devours Silver Dennis and his sons. In 130 AC, when the carcass of a dragon grey ghost is discovered at the Dragonmont's base, burned and broken, torn apart, and partially devoured, Dragonstone's castellan Ser Robert is quick to name the Cannibal as the killer, though in truth it was actually Sunfire. Some fisherfolk begin to worry that the dragon would attack them as well, and urge Ser Robert to send knights to kill the Cannibal. He refuses, reasoning that if they left the dragon alone he would not bother them, and forbids fishing in the waters to the east of the Dragonmont, where Grey Ghost's body had been found. However, Lady Baela Targaryen, Daemon's daughter, is not satisfied with this explanation, and at later seasons she will propose to discover the truth herself, as she has no fear of the Cannibal and her dragon Moondancer, in her opinion, could outfly him. But Ser Robert stops her from taking the risk and confines Baela to her chambers. The Cannibal is one of a very few dragons that survive the Dance of the Dragons. In 132 AC, It is said that during the burial at sea of Lord Corlys Velaryon, the cannibal takes wing and flies to salute the deceased sea snake. However, Archmaester Gildane notes this may be a later embellishment of the story, since the cannibal would be more likely to eat the corpse than salute it. Sometime after the end of the Targaryen civil war, the cannibal will vanish, likely due to his food disappearing, as Cannibal was only eating Targaryen dragons, hatchlings, and dragon eggs. Since most of the House Targaryen's dragons are killed during the Dance of the Dragons, Cannibal has to look somewhere else for food. The cannibal could also be a symbolism of the Targaryen civil war, the Dance of the Dragons itself. Given that it's a black dragon with green eyes that eats other dragons, it literally symbolizes both Targaryen factions, the blacks and the greens, eating each other. It's also interesting that after the Civil War, where basically almost all members of both factions were dead, it vanished. Out of all dragons, I'm most excited to see the cannibal in Season 3 of House of the Dragon, and it is confirmed that we will see him. Now that you know everything about the cannibal, let's take a look at a few theories surrounding this legendary dragon. There are many theories about the cannibal, and even though I personally believe that he comes from a different lineage of dragons, from a different Valyrian family, and not from the Targaryens, there is a theory that he is the dragon that was supposed to be Maegor the Cruel's. Theory states that the cannibal is Maegor's hatchling, and that he rejected Cannibal because he wanted Valyrian, not a newborn dragon. There is, I have to admit, something about the destructive behavior of the two that makes a good parallel. It does seem fitting with Maegor's brutality and arrogance that he wouldn't want a weak and small newborn dragon and would only ride Valyrian. Just the idea of having a dragon would be amazing. No one besides the Targaryens have them. But that wasn't enough for Maegor. He needed the best of the best. While there is a few things that make this theory attractive, I just don't buy it since there is something that contradicts it and even disputes it in the George R.R. Martin's book Fire and Blood. In there, George wrote that Rhaenyra Targaryen started the whole cradle egg thing, in which a baby Targaryen is given dragon egg and put in its cradle. So if it's explicitly stated by George R.R. Martin in his History of House Targaryen book that Rhaenyra Targaryen is the one who started this tradition, then it disputes the theory that the cannibal is Maegor the Cruel's hatchling. Neither Aegon the Conqueror, Rhaenys, Visenya, Aenys, Maegor, Rhaenyra, nor Aegon rode a dragon they hatched from a dragon egg, nor was a dragon egg given to them when they were babies. They all claimed grown dragons. Another theory about the cannibal is that he is the last Westerosi dragon, and did not come from the Targaryens nor the old Valyria. George R.R. Martin wrote this in his The World of Ice and Fire book. Yet if men in the shadow had tamed dragons first, why did they not conquer as the Valyrians did? It seems likelier that the Valyrian tale is the truest. But there were dragons in Westeros, once, long before the Targaryens came, as our own legends and histories tell us. If dragons did first spring from the 14 flames, they must have been spread across much of the known world before they were tamed. And in fact, there is evidence for this, as dragon bones have been found as far north as Ib, and even in the jungles of Sithorios. But the Valyrians harnessed and subjugated them as no one could. George R.R. Martin makes it clear that dragons existed and once inhabited Westeros long before Targaryens came, but they were wild dragons, and no one could tame them. Cannibal is said by the small folk to live in Dragonstone before the Targaryens came. So could he be the last Westerosi dragon? Is that why he is attacking House Targaryen's dragons and using them as his source of food, and is that why he remains wild dragon? Is that why his size differs to Targaryen dragons, even though he is supposed to be older than all of them? Perhaps. Perhaps he is the last Westerosi dragon. The theory I find most plausible for the cannibal is that he is Valyrian dragon, but not of House Targaryen, but rather some other Valyrian family, hence why he sees House Targaryen's dragons as enemies and even potential threats, and that's why he is killing and eating so many House Targaryen's dragons, hatchlings, and dragon eggs. We know that the cannibal's home is Dragonstone, and if the small folk of that island is to be believed, then Cannibal lived there before the Targaryens even arrived. You might wonder, how is it possible for a Valyrian dragon outside House Targaryen to be on Dragonstone? Aren't they brought there by the Targaryens themselves? Well, let me remind you that Targaryens were not the first Valyrians to come or live on Dragonstone. 2 centuries before the Doom, and way before the Targaryens came to Dragonstone, Valyrians took possession of the island and built a castle upon it, which became the westernmost outpost of the Valyrian freehold. Only 12 years prior to the doom of Valyria, Rhaenyra Targaryen, the head of House Targaryen, relocated his family, their 5 dragons, and all their wealth to Dragonstone. After his maiden daughter Daenerys the Dreamer predicted the destruction of the Valyrian freehold. So for almost 2 centuries, other Valyrians inhabited Dragonstone, and in my opinion the Cannibal belonged to one of those Valyrian families, and either stayed on Dragonstone because his owner died, or was a newborn dragon who was never claimed, or even more likely the Cannibal was a dragon egg left behind by a Valyrian family who once inhabited Dragonstone. That would explain why the small folk of Dragonstone claim the Cannibal lived there even before the Targaryens came. It would explain why he is targeting the eggs and newborn dragons, because he knows it comes from a different lineage of dragons and is behaving territorially.